So in closing with our type section of the class, I just want to kind of summarize some of the key points that we've talked about and give you a couple things to think about when trying to figure out which font you should use in your project. First of all, don't be afraid of extremes. Find ways to use extremely large or extremely small type. This plays upon the principle of contrast. Strong contrast between large and small makes a piece effective. White space. Don't fear it. It's okay to have white space. It's okay to have empty space on your page. It's okay to have space that is not filled with text or graphics or anything but clean, empty space. It's okay. Your type will love it. Your viewers will love it. Look for examples of white space. White space is good. Effective typography means choosing a typeface that reinforces the message of words. Type that evokes a desired response. Think it through. If you have something important to say and you want to reinforce a message with typography, think it through carefully. Consider a variety of options. Look at several choices. Analyze what message is sent not only by the words, but by the way the words look. Things you can do to help choosing a typeface. Well, remember the general categories of type. Remember how certain fonts are more readable and more legible in certain situations. Understanding these categories and concepts is important in helping you narrow your choices. Old style. These faces have slanted serifs, gradual thick to thin strokes, and slanted stress. The O appears tilted. The original old style faces were created for books, and they're considered very readable. The modern faces have thin horizontal serifs, radical thick to thin strokes, and a vertical stress. The O does not appear to tilt. If there is more than a paragraph or two in a modern face, the strong thick to thin contrast of the letter forms creates a dazzling effect. Modern faces are less readable in extended text because of their more pronounced strokes. Slab serifs. These faces have thick horizontal serifs, little or no thick to thin transition in the strokes, and a vertical stress. The O does not appear to tilt. If the slab serif is not too heavy, it can make a very sturdy and solid readable face. Sans serif. These faces have no serifs, and almost all sans serifs have mono weight strokes, no thick to thin contrast. The absence of serifs and the mono weight strokes make sans serifs slightly less readable in print than old styles, but because of their clearly defined letter forms without the addition of serifs, this style is actually more legible in short bursts, larger sizes, and on screen. And then of course you have the decorative display and script fonts, which are all over the board because they're so varied. The more distinctive features, the less readable it is. The less suitable it is for long blocks of text. The old style and the light weights of slab serifs are the most invisible and subsequently the most readable. Sans serifs tend to be more legible because they have clean, straightforward letter forms. To narrow your choices for a printed project, ask yourself, what is your output printer resolution? Is it low, which is about 72 to 144 dpi, or that could also be considered a very old printer, printing to a newspaper or penny saver, fax? Is it medium, which is 300 to 600 dpi, or is it high resolution, like an image setter, and that could be anywhere from 1270 to about 2540 dpi. You also need to find out what will be the final reproduction method. Is it a copy machine, a quick press, or a high quality press? Also, what kind of paper are you going to be reproducing on? Is it newspaper, cheap bound, textured stock, glossy stock, or fax stocked? All of the questions that I just mentioned basically refer to quality. The quality of the type on screen, the quality of the type that comes out of the printer, and the quality of the reproduction method, and the quality of the paper. If each of these variables is on the high end, then choose a typeface, like technical concern is wise. You can choose just about any typeface because it's going to reproduce well. If any of these variables is on the low end, like textured paper is considered here, then you need to be more selective and make sure that your type will reproduce well. Lower quality output cannot retain subtle design characteristics like the fine lines and delicate serifs. Inexpensive paper, especially newsprint, absorbs ink and loses even more details. In a situation where poor conditions exist, choose a typeface that has sturdy serifs, no fine lines, and a large X height with open counters. Good choices are Clarendon Light or New Century Schoolbook, Bookman, or Memphis. Most sans serifs will hold up well under any condition, but they are the easiest to read on screen, and they're definitely the easiest to read on screen due to their simplicity of form. Is there an extensive amount of text to present? Well, in a situation where you have lots of text, like a newspaper, annual report, or a book, you need to choose a body typeface with maximum readability. Under the best printing conditions, high-resolution output, smooth paper, and a good printing press, try a classic old style for best readability, something like Adobe Caslon Pro. Under less optimum printing conditions, try a slab serif. It'll be extremely readable and it won't fall apart in the reproduction process, something like Clarendon. Are you cramped for space, or do you have a need to fill space? Different typefaces take up different amounts of space, even at the same point size, and we've seen this. The most critical factor for this is the difference in the width of the characters. The Family Times has an average X height, but the characters are slightly condensed to fit more on a page. Other faces like Guermonde are more round and open and fill the page easily. As a general rule, more open typefaces like to have more line spacing and wider margins and gutters to complement spaciousness. Is the purpose of the piece serious, or can the text be a little bit more playful? Sometimes when a brochure has a fair amount of text, you don't really want an invisible typeface. There are many choices of typefaces that are readable for short text, but distinctive enough to create a look that emphasizes your message. Just be aware that you're making a choice between the ideal readability and an impression. Casual faces tend to be more distinctive. Their features have quirks. They're rounded, soft edges. They make it more comfortable and casual. Serifs that curve or branch off at odd angles give it a more friendly feel. Faces that resemble hand lettering or handwritten have a much more casual feel. Using these typefaces to create a casual impression, no matter what is being said by the words, can be helpful in certain situations. The typefaces with a more professional, serious, respectable, and stable look are the invisible typefaces. These are ones that communicate clearly with no quirks, and they can be considered the gray suits of typography. Is your piece meant to be read, or is it simply skimmed? Be honest about this. Things like catalogs are usually skimmed. The viewer will read the headlines first and find the text they want to read. Sans serif faces are more legible, meaning the separate character forms are more easily distinguished at a quick glance. They also hold up well in less than optimum printing conditions. If the headlines are meant to lead the readers into a paragraph of text, consider a sans serif for the headlines and a serif face for the paragraphs. This will ensure maximum readability and a good visual contrast. Think about the emotional needs of a piece. Choose a typeface that speaks emotionally. Does the look and feel of the typeface reinforce your message? Experiment with new and different faces you may not have considered at first. There are so many interesting and wild typefaces now. Many can be very intriguing. Just be careful not to overdose your reader with too much of a special face. A strong impact can easily be diluted by overuse. Create contrast between stable and more creativity. Think of utilizing a more wild font face, not for every headline in a piece, but just for like one special article. The contrast between the more stable headline treatments and the unusual one will make the special article stand out. Keep your eye open for what others have done with typography. Use them for inspiration. Analyze your project. Know your output method and final reproduction process, and choose an appropriate font face that will retain design qualities and readability. Decide on the look you want to convey, not just at what's being said, but how you're going to say it for maximum effect. If you use more than one face, make sure the fonts are definitely different from each other. Remember, contrast. Don't be afraid to use something unusual when appropriate, but remember it will be more effective when used sparingly. The more unique, the more powerful, but don't overdose and dilute the effect. And finally, I just want to deconstruct a couple of examples. This example is from the magazine spread The Conservator. This magazine spread is well laid out and demonstrates beautiful use of type that enhances the layout. Since the spread uses the photo as a background texture, the type is left to provide visual focus and deliver the message. It immediately grabs the user's attention and effortlessly leads them through the piece. The headline treatment is non-traditional and still retains maximum readability. As you can see from this example, using extremely tight leading and a mix of font weights, styles, and color, along with some rotation, make a big impact. Mixing the font faces can be tricky to effectively pull it off, but here it provides an interesting visual. The simple bold lines of new, set in sans serif, immediately command attention and ensure that new is a focal point of the headline. The body copy is simply set in 2 columns in justified alignment and delivers the information in a clean, crisp manner. The lines generated by the justified text columns work as a design element and help to give the right side of the spread more necessary color, if you will, and texture. The next example that we're going to be looking at is a breast cancer awareness ad. This uses primarily type and color to communicate with the viewer. The type is placed onto the format asymmetrically. This helps to make it memorable. It combines its tight leading on the text with great monochromatic color palette. Subtle shades are created when the various colors filling the letters. The designer's choice to make the text big and fit together tightly helps to support what it is saying, that many women are affected by breast cancer. All the letters packed together to help reinforce this. While at first glance, this design violates design rules by not giving the type large enough margin and enough line spacing, but this treatment is very effective in adding to the tension that the type is trying to communicate. This is a good example of how rules are meant to be broken, but only in the name of strengthening the concept, and here it definitely does that. The use of the ultra-light alternate style of this font provides a great lead-in and aids in creating balance and direction. The tagline at the bottom of the poster is set in a very elegant feminine font. It's a good choice to talk about hope and possibility. It also provides balance for the poster. This example is the Tools for Democracy brochure, and it basically takes a really unique approach of combining art and type into one image. The designs are very simple but very effective, and they attract the eye. All of the important terms that are used to create the shape of the hammer or the saw are words that support the concept, and they all take their shape from the headline on the imposing page. So if we look over here, it says Hammer of Justice, and then you can see that this is all, community, organizing creativity, building relationships, all the different types of things that it says. The limited color palette here is used to complete the design. Restraint is so important in any design, and you can see how it works well here. Remember, don't allow yourself to add anything except what is critical to the core design idea. This could include color or other elements that ultimately serve only to distract from the original concept of the art. Multiple font faces were used to build the tool's shapes, but the copy-heavy pages are limited to a sans serif on the headlines and a serif for the body copy. These are easy to read and provide a clean, simple delivery to the type. Really nicely done. And the last example is this Nike Acg Ad Campaign. It's bold, clean, and eye-catching. This is a series of ads. The main headline is formed of organic materials that are derived from the catchy and unexpected headlines. The color and the main focus is the feather or the flower petals, depending which ad we're looking at. The big, bold sans serif font was chosen for its direct format and simplicity. It's needed because of the more involved and complex treatment that the text is wearing, if you will. The drop shadow is placed underneath the type, giving it weight and dimension. Choosing to make this element 3D really makes it jump off the page. It commands attention. The subhead uses the same font, but it's displayed in black, and it's clear and to the point. The supporting text is set in a serif face and is right aligned. The right alignment helps to frame the product, which is positioned over here on the left. Plenty of white space surrounds the text and the images, and it draws the viewer's eye to the center and helps them to be drawn into the ad. In this section of the course, you learned key technical type terms. You should now have a working familiarity with the vocabulary of typography, and this should let you better communicate with other designers. More importantly, knowing basic type terms gives you the power to better control your own type choices. Understanding the different type of categories and when they are appropriate to use on a page empowers you to tailor the typeface, size, weight, and placement of your type to best emphasize your message. Your layouts will be more distinctive and more sophisticated.